We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. Baltimore Positive. We are positively no longer in the studio. We are here for the very first time broadcasting from the bar at Costas. We're in Dundalk. It's all brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. I got some Raven scratchers. They gave me a handful when Seth came over to Amici's, and he gave me these awesome little holidays. I don't have a lot of them left, but the holiday luck doublers. If the Causey family shows up, I'm going to give him one of these. Calvin Statham is here. He's going to be talking about the Dundalk life. We're going to have Todd Schuler a little later on, my lawyer buddy from Essex, as well as Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Gina Schock. She's coming to join me at the bar. That's going to be holiday trouble a little later on. We had a great day at Amici's. Lots of great guests. All of them brought to you by our friends at Jiffy Lube Multi-Care as well. Pittsburgh week, Christmas week, Houston around, friends in, people coming in. I'm right at the front door at Costas. Poor Pete Raimondi here, one of our sponsors from Erie Insurance up in Harford County. You've had to endure my Dundalkness, right? Like people come in the door, hey, Ness, family, friends. I had another insurance friend come by here earlier. How are you, man? I appreciate the sponsorship. You have not visited, but I wanted to do like sort of an insurance end of the year thing with you. And Leonard Raskin, of course, handles my money and is our financial advisor. He is so the things you spend money on and the things that save you when things go wrong, like the Mayhem commercial and all that stuff we see. You've been doing insurance a long time. You reached me a couple months ago and said, hey, let's educate our audience a little bit. And you and I did a couple phone calls about insurance. What do you do? Tell everybody about your background, because he's a big-time listener. You've been listening to WNST for a long, long time.
Very simply, Ness, what I do is I provide insurance protection for families. We insure their homes, their autos, their lives.
Insurance is not exciting, though.
No, it only becomes exciting when you don't know what you have when something occurs.
Oh, there's no question. You don't have a person that you can call, right?
Then the excitement begins, and then the anxiety follows.
Well, and I think that we've all seen enough advertising in the legal space and in the insurance space to say that, and I saw some jackwagon on 695, like you're always a moment away, and all the commercials sort of speak to that, and then it's what happens that moment it happens. Do I have the right insurance, the wrong insurance? I know you and I talked about my business insurance at one point. I wasn't in control of it. Somebody else was doing it. And when my wife got sick, I realized, they had everything in favor of my employees not protecting me as the business owner, right? Because I'm like, I don't want to get in those meetings. Yeah, I got sports to do and sales to do and people to, like all of that. But whether you own a business, if you're alone and you're a single person in a single household, there's going to come a point where you're going to need it, right? I mean, my wife, obviously, with her health issues and stuff like that, but I can't think about how many times I've reached for insurance or thought about insurance, but you don't think about it. And at the end of the year, families get together and get to talking a little bit, and Leonard and I talked about that this week. This is a time at the end of the year we all sort of assess where we are, and maybe your insurance runs April to April or whatever, but end of the year to do a little, like, fitness checkup, right, on your insurance, make sure you got the right stuff, right?
Absolutely. And probably the most important aspect of that is the fact that you have an agent and you sit down with them at least once every 2 years to review your policies to make sure that if the unspeakable happens, you have protection against it. And in many cases, what I have experienced, at least over the last 25 or 30 years of doing this business, is that it has become pretty much, it's been turned into a commodity. People don't buy insurance anymore for protection. They buy it based on the price. And they buy it on price without understanding what kind of coverage they have and what kind of perils they're protected against. They'll use
deductible's a terrible word,
well,
right?
They'll throw out these nefarious terms like, I have full coverage. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean if you injure somebody and they sue you for $500,000 that your insurance carrier is going to stand behind you and defend you against that judgment? And if, in fact, the court does award a judgment against you, is your insurance company, did they provide you with enough coverage? Or is that person's attorney going to come after you personally? once the insurance is exhausted. What I find many times in speaking with potential clients or prospects is that just about everyone can say, I have insurance, but what their first dollar costs are, what their deductibles are, what their co-insurance is, and what perils they're protected against, sometimes it's just non-existent. People assume, because that's what insurance is supposed to do. It's supposed to provide protection and pay for those expenses.
But if you haven't sat and talked with someone like you about it, I mean, Steve Bisciotti always says 10,000 hours, and like you haven't put enough time into doing this to be expert at it, right? And I use him. That any
Sure.
self-help person would tell you that. Any business person would tell you that. The insurance part, it changes. It's like taxes. You know, if you're not in on it, you need a guy or a girl. You need a person. You need a very competent person who deals in it every day. And I find that when I talk to, whether it's Leonard Raskin about this, or even whether it's about Wendy Bronfond about cannabis, or whether it's Pete Triantifilos about crabs, if it's when people talk to me about radio, or like when you do it, and it's all you do. There are parts of the insurance part because you've seen everything. Especially, how long have you been doing insurance, Pete?
I have been doing this since March of 1988.
All right, so you've seen some ish.
I've seen some things.
Yeah, I bet you have. Well, give me a horror story that really happened that you're like, oh my God, this really happened. It's an insurance. Somebody didn't have the right insurance. You find people get wrecked in this, right? So
sure,
I mean, you got to begin with
sure
what you're susceptible to.
Sure.
If I go down and T-bone somebody here in front of Costas.
Well, sure. I'll give you an example. 30-some years ago, I had a client that was driving home from Towson to Harford County. They had gotten off on Interstate 95 on the 152.
I've done that 100 times. Everybody has, right?
Driving the speed limit, and they were struck head on. The driver and his wife, they were struck head on by a drunk driver who was insured with the state's minimum liability requirements. At that time, it was $20,000 per person, $40,000 per accident, and $15,000 worth of property damage.
That's not a lot of money.
Not a lot of money.
Not even 35 years ago.
Yeah. Not even 35 years ago. That was any money. And this intoxicated driver injured 3 people, put 3 people in the hospital. One of those 3 people spent a year and a half in the hospital, did tens of thousands of dollars worth of property damage, millions of dollars in medical bills for the 3 folks that were injured that were transported to shock trauma. Now, when they attempted to bring suit against the person that was at fault, they had no assets, and they had the state's required minimum liability. So you had 2 operators, or you had 3 people that were injured by this drunk driver that, in a sense, had $40,000 of coverage to divide among the 3. And none of those folks received any remuneration for any of their pain or suffering or any of their actual out-of-pocket expenses for home health care.
Now, does this person go to jail?
They went to jail for a year.
1 year.
Yep, they served 1 year in jail.
And I've got
in
I've been in a hospital a year and a half, and medical bills and
it
can't work, all of that, right?
Yeah. And these folks discovered that while they did have uninsured motorist coverage, the uninsured motorist coverage that they had was recovered through subrogation to pay the medical bills. So again, you had multiple vehicles that were damaged with not enough insurance to pay the bill, and you had serious bodily injury with not enough insurance to provide for the well-being of these individuals once they were
horror
discharged.
Story. I mean, you're giving me a horror story.
This is the worst. That's the worst possible scenario, that you're the breadwinner of the family. God forbid, through no fault of your own,
You've been hospitalized.
the unspeakable happens and you're hospitalized, and it could be a year or 2 or 3 years before you even see potentially the inside of a courtroom or file suit. who's going to make you whole in the interim?
And filing suit, who makes you whole when you sue somebody who has nothing for $1 million?
Nothing.
I mean, yeah.
The only thing that can make you whole
Is your insurance.
Is your insurance. If you have an adequate amount of uninsured motorist coverage, and that's where
Loss of work, all of that.
That's
yes.
where having a relationship with a professional, licensed agent that you know, that you can pick up the telephone, that you see him in the grocery store, lives in your neighborhood.
Who's going to answer the call at that tragedy, too?
That's the person that...
Not 1-800 Geico, I'm on hold. Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, anytime... It's just not something that I would recommend to any of my clients. It's that important. I mean, you're talking about protecting your assets, protecting your livelihood, your ability to go to work, your ability to earn an income. And that's what insurance is for, whether the at-fault party is providing it or you're providing it for yourself.
Words of wisdom. Pete Raimondi here from Erie Insurance. So everybody, tell everybody about your practice and what you do. We've all heard of Erie Insurance. Insurance. You can't watch a football game this week without seeing, all the nationwides, all of that going on. State Farm, everybody's advertising in big ways. There's lots of neighborhood places. What is Erie and what do you do?
Well, I'll tell you what Erie does that none of our competition does. And what we do is we offer a product that is as near perfect as perfect can be. And no one else offers this product in the state of Maryland.
What is that product?
And that product is a guaranteed replacement cost homeowner's insurance policy. If it can rain, it can flood. And if it floods and you don't have extended water coverage...
I'm that guy. It happened to me, Isabel. It got me out of my place. It moved me downtown. My basement flooded in Isabel and White Marsh. We didn't find it. We were out in San Diego with the Ravens. We didn't find it for 9 days. We came back. Basement smelled like dirty eggs.
And mold.
Oh, it was up the wall.
Right.
I had to get my guy John Boswick out to Serve Pro, get all the water.
It's a mess.
It was $30,000 in damage, probably.
Yeah. It's a mess.
And I ate it because it was a sump pump that failed, all that.
Yeah. And those things are avoidable. Those things are avoidable when you have an agent that is looking out to protect your interests. And that's what we do. We are independent agents at Wessel Insurance that represents Erie Insurance Company. And we chose Erie. We chose Erie because they do something that nobody else does. And they offer, as I mentioned, a product that is as near perfect as perfect can be. We don't disguise wind and hail deductibles. We don't disguise co-insurance. We don't have language in our policy.
Well, I mean, anybody, I have a lawyer coming here who will tell you insurance does everything you do to not pay the bill, right? I mean, that's the American way or the way we think of it, that we don't want to have to fight with our insurance company about anything, especially when you're in trauma, right? Like at that point. And that's why you have to really sit with somebody who knows what they're doing before you get insurance, and then they need to be there when the moment happens that you need them.
And that's a certain moment of truth why it's important to have an agent that's going to advocate for you on your behalf. I've told my clients all the time, if you have a question, call me. I'm always available to you. There's no reason for you not to call me.
I just often wonder, like, we do this on the radio or podcast, people listen, however many people are out there, how many people really know their insurance, that if a rock hit the windshield now, is that $500? What's my deductible on that, right? Just little-ish that will nickel and dime the hell out of you. I mean, I got a little nugget out of my windshield right now, and we haven't replaced. It's no big deal. It's really tiny. It's, but if we wanted to do it, what's it going to cost? And you always think when you call for insurance and you bang them for $2,000 because your roof fell apart, something that they're going to get it back by charging you more the next time around, right? So you're like, you don't want to make a claim, right? Unless you have a claim, right? And I think that as I sit here, I can't promise you that I know every deductible. You find your deductible when the poop hits the fan, right? I mean, literally, you do. You say something to your insurance agent a year or two ago, even then, but you don't really know-it-all. And when you guys send me that book of everything that, all the things that can go wrong, it scares the hell out of you, so sometimes you don't even want to look at it.
That's exactly correct.
That's true, right? All right, I see you smiling about that.
No, you get a 25-page document in the mail.
It's intimidating.
That has a declarations page on it, which tells you what the limits of your coverage
That's why I
are.
don't go to Cheesecake Factory. It's too much to go through to order. You know what I mean? I don't want to do that much reading. You know what I mean?
But again, that's why, sometimes what I find are clients don't know what they don't know.
Which is a lot.
Okay? They don't know what they don't know.
How can anybody not know a lot about insurance when you spend an hour a year with your agent, and then when something goes, because you don't do this all day.
Well,
nobody does this all day but you.
Yeah. And part of the fiduciary duty that we owe our clients is asking the right questions and underwriting the risk and doing that at the agency level, not just simply writing an insurance policy and taking an order. And that's what unfortunately happens in this business, in this industry. People, will buy insurance and they will buy it over the telephone. They'll buy it from a customer service rep who's not even licensed in their state. Many times these folks that are working for
they're in a call center in Utah.
That's
sure
exactly
they
correct.
Are. Right, yeah, of course they are.
It's a boiler room with one licensed agent supervising.
What you're telling me right now would be the last thing in the world I would ever do to buy insurance. Right. You know what I mean? But that's the call to action on football.
Every day.
Every day. Yeah. And then when the poop hits the fan, they're mad, and they go to the internet and say I'm mad or like whatever.
Right, and
I got a hole in my windshield, and they want $1,200 for me to fix it or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, you bought the wrong insurance, man.
And the thing is, when someone such as yourself gets a hole in their windshield, I want to know about it. I want that client to call me and say, "Hey, this happened." I would much rather pay $100 claim to fix that windshield and repair it with epoxy if we can repair it and prevent it from cracking all the way than having to pay for an $800 or a $1,500 windshield.
Sure.
So
he knows how much windshields cost.
So if a repair can be made, certainly we want to know about it. And that's why, again, having a relationship with an agent is important. Because
get rid of your phone number here, because I make sure we're giving the right number. Because he runs ads here, but they're from your. I don't read your ads, so I haven't had a thing out. So this gives you an opportunity to at least talk about it a little bit. Because insurance is boring as hell. That's why we're doing it over crab cake during the holidays here to make sure people know that this is an important thing.
Sure, absolutely. I can be reached at 410-698-5891. Or by email. They can reach me at Pete, P-E-T-E, at WestWESinsurance.com.
West Insurance, Wessel Insurance. He's up in the Jarrettsville area, lives up in the Forest Hill area for all my Hartford County friends. Should have brought you out January 7th. I'm going to be at Lib's Grill up in Bel Air on January 7th. Nick's getting together. We're going to have some friends up there. I ran into Joe Slivka. I think he's trying to get the county executive out. So we're going to be up at Hartford County right after. This is our last crab cake tour stop here. It's all brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery, the Holiday Luck Doubler. Pete Raimondi's my guest. Calvin Stadium's going to come on a little later on. I got Todd Schuler here from Schuler Miller, Blondell Miller Schuler. Make sure you get them all in the right order. I went to middle school and high school with Mark Miller. So, and Mark only comes on and talks baseball cards with me. He won't talk law with me. He practices that. But Todd's going to come by. I'm sure we'll talk some Preakness and some holiday festivities. His wife's a Browns fan, so we get to pick on her a little bit too. It's good. And then Gina Schock, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer from the Go-Go's, is going to be here a little later. I brought my Go-Go's CD. Calvin Stadium has stolen my 1980 and 81 Hollabird Middle School yearbooks to talk about all the students. And as he says, his children, and he's told me he's going to talk sports with me. He ain't going to talk sports with me. You're a sports fan. You've been a listener a long time. How did I come to you or you come to me? And if anybody wants to sponsor the show, people like Pete, I said, Pete, meet Pete. Pete, meet Pete. Pete owns Costas, him and his dad. So, the sponsors are what makes WNST, a Baltimore Positive, happen. And you are the all-too-rare guy that reached me a couple months ago and said, hey, I want to do some advertising with you through Erie Insurance, through what we do at Wessel. How do we go about doing that? And first thing I said is, well, how did you hear about me? Like, I've been doing this 33 years. I have no. You said something to me when we came in here before we had a cup of soup. You're like, I remember you at Camden Yards in 1990. What was your story? I said, hold that one for the air.
Yeah. No, it was I remember you running around on the literally running around doing interviews on
The field.
On the field, and I believe it was the day before the All-Star game.
Oh, that was a derby, home run derby game.
Yeah, exactly. I had gone over to the convention center. If you remember, that was all set
my
up.
boy was 9 years old, and they were batting cage. I bought a whole bunch of swings. It was a Disney World. It was a convention.
I was fortunate enough. I met a guy that I'm not sure. I haven't opened the bag, honest to God, in probably 30 years. But I bought a bunch of prototype All-Star baseball caps that were made for Camden Yards for that game.
All right.
And they finally ended up going with the all-white cap with the
Rubenstein wears a hat that's very.
That's it.
That's the hat. That's the hat
from. That's the hat from the '93.
Well, it had the All-Star logo.
The All-Star logo on it, and I met a guy who was a rep that worked for one of the ball cap companies. It may have been New Era or whoever it was that was making the ball caps at that time, and bought a bunch of caps from him. He goes, "Hey, I've got some other ones outside." Walked outside with him, opened up his trunk, and he had all these prototype ones, and I bought probably half a dozen of them. And like I said, I haven't looked at them in 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, we get all sorts of swag, right? Like, I'm going through that too, and it's been 31 years, man.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like crazy, but that day you're talking about, the home run derby day, I've told this story, and I don't have any pictures because I didn't have a camera in my pocket or whatever.
Well, nobody did back then.
That day. But, there was a picture of me and Bill Murray that Jerry Wachter, who was the late, great Jerry Wachter, took a picture of me and Bill Murray at home plate. He was wearing all his Cubs gear. And I knew Bill pretty decently at that time because he and Sutcliffe were close. Mm-hmm. And that was the day Michael Jordan took BP, if you remember, in the White Sox gear.
Yep.
And Patrick Ewing was there, too. Yeah. He was in Mets gear. And he was from the islands. He'd never held a bat. Uh-huh. So he didn't really know how to swing a bat. I mean, he was such a big man, Patrick Ewing. But the NBA and baseball was involved there. Geddy Lee did the national anthem. Yep. I was at the gala at that Monday night. The gala was at the Science Center, and I ran into Geddy Lee that night, and he signed my ticket. But my memory that day, you saying you saw me on the field that day, I was totally on the field that day. So, you're the only one that has borne witness to that in 31 years.
Yeah.
Because I tell people, when Griffey hit the dugout or hit the warehouse, I was sitting in the dugout with Mark McGwire.
Okay.
And what had happened was I had my pass around my neck, and because I was always at the ballpark, this is back when I was in the real media, I was always there early because I worked downtown. ITA, my radio station was at Light Street, so I was always at the ballpark at 2:00. That's how I knew all the players in that era really well. I was always there. I was on the road with the team. But that day, they were rounding the media off the field for the home run derby. And remember, the home run derby was not live then. It was embargoed.
Correct.
They taped it. They videotaped it in the afternoon on Monday and embargoed it for ESPN to run it that night. And this is before the internet. And when everybody was getting thrown off the field, I just sat my ass down in the dugout and acted like I belonged.
There.
Right?
Well, you had a jersey on. I remember you had an Oriole jersey on, and you had a lanyard around your neck.
I had my Oriole jersey. Okay, fair enough. So I had my Oriole jersey on. I did have my Oriole. It was white. I still own that jersey. And I sat in the dugout, and the cops knew me.
Yeah.
And everybody knew me. It was our home ballpark. So there was no security to speak of that. Oh, that's Nestor. I just sat there, So I sat during the entire home run derby, and I've seen some video footage of it, but I'm always looking, because those cameras were everywhere, and there was a lot of stoppage and zooming in on players cheering each other on. And I'm like, there's got to be video of me sitting in the dugout. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
This is so cool you bring that up because that's such a great memory for me. But I don't have any pictures of it. It's just a story I tell them. Like, I was in the dugout that day. Now, you're telling me you saw me in the field. I was.
Yeah.
And now you're telling me I was wearing an Oriole jersey. Yeah. I wouldn't have remembered that if you didn't tell me that.
I actually may have some photographs of it.
Dude, if you have a picture of me.
I'll tell you why.
That would mean the world to me.
You mentioned that you knew some of the police that worked the dugout. My cousin, who has since passed away, is about 15 years older than me, but he was a city police officer for like 40 years, and he spent probably the last 15 years before he retired at Camden Yards.
What was his name?
John Gavins.
Didn't know him. There was another guy that was a corporal.
Yeah, John worked. John had the game. He had 21-30, 21-31. In fact, he's on the 21-31 tape. When
Of course,
standing
sure.
right next to Bobby Bonilla. Bobby Bonilla is pushing Cal out of the dugout.
Well, there was always a cop at both ends of the dugout. Yeah.
Pushing him out of the dugout.
I mean, there's probably a cop sitting next to me during the home run derby. It's just I looked like I belonged, and there was no, I mean, there really weren't. There weren't a lot of. I mean, there weren't a lot of people because you think about the home run derby, and there's kids everywhere, and they kind of all sit around. Yeah. This was the beginning of that era.
Sure,
but I sat and I watched that in the dugout.
Yeah.
and you at least were a witness to it.
Yeah.
Pete Raimondi is here.
He
is an insurance agent up in Harford County. He's also a big sports fan. Ravens. I mean, Super Bowl. I mean, you've had PSLs. I mean, you're a P1 sports guy. I mean, that's how you found me. So if you want a guy who's a sports guy to talk sports with you and sell you some insurance, this is the guy. But you've been at it as long as I am, suffering with the Orioles. Waiting on the Ravens and Lamar and all that. This is I had Chris Corman from the Baltimore Banner on yesterday, and I put the piece up at Baltimore Positive. I'm like, sort of end of the year, it's been an interesting year in that we haven't had a lot of years where our baseball and football teams in our lifetime have both been good enough to win.
Sure.
Both playoff teams and not crappy playoff teams. I mean, say what you want about the Orioles this year. Little pitching, little luck, little health. They could have won the World Series. I mean, I don't know a lot of years we could have ever said that about the Orioles, right? And I think with the Ravens, we say that often, but then we're like, were they really better than Tom Brady any of those years, or Peyton Manning, or have they really been better than Patrick? They haven't been. They have been disappointing at that point, and we're at one of these critical points right now with the Steelers game, the holiday week, and everything that's going on. And they're going to play next month, so they're going to have a chance. Yeah. So we all could have some belief that their better angels could show up, but they put themselves in a tough position right now.
Yeah, and maybe that's where they need to be. I mean, I really don't know, because I was actually thinking about that coming in this morning, and I can't help but feel that this team, being somewhat a bit erratic and unpredictable, is somewhat similar. Obviously, absent of Ed Reed and Ray Lewis of the 2012 team.
Yeah, the 11 team was the better team.
It was a much better team.
Yeah, it didn't win.
That was that team that year should have won a Super Bowl.
Well, Cundiff gets blamed for it, but Harbaugh sat on the timeout. So, when it comes time for John Harbaugh to go to the Hall of Fame, aside from throwing me out and me having zero respect for his integrity on all of that, as a football coach and as a tactician and as a guy who throws the red flag, and
Flacco threw.
They ran the ball 3 times in the championship game. I mean, they're just some real scars along this. And when I think of John specifically, I think if that Jacoby Jones play doesn't happen, John's probably fired in 2017, and probably would have been a very different journey had they exited in Denver that day.
Yeah.
So John's had that good fortune for all of this. Lamar's got the MVPs, and Marlon Humphrey's got his money, and Roquan. This is a real big couple of weeks for the franchise, I think, for where they are with finances, with players, with the end for Ronnie Stanley, with where they are with Mark Andrews, with the money they're going to have to give Kyle Hamilton at some point, and Tyler Linderbaum. Guys are coming on and other guys are going away.
Yeah.
They were constructed to win a Super Bowl this year, and they're healthy.
Yeah.
So the excuses are penalties, secondary, pass rush, offensive line, I guess, if they don't get there in the end. But they piece this thing together. They have the tools to win a championship.
Sure.
They really do.
Yeah. If they don't beat themselves and play error-free football, I think they have as good a chance as anyone. I mean, to make a run. They're healthy, and that plays a huge part.
Well, Buffalo and Kansas City don't want to see them coming into January either.
No.
But then they're going to have to go someplace cold and nasty and win. And I don't know. I don't love that pathway of Buffalo, Kansas City.
I don't either.
Yeah, I mean that's not the road.
Yeah.
But we loved the pathway last year, and then they burped.
Yeah.
Like literally.
At home, literally.
Yeah. Did you go to the game?
No, I didn't go to the game.
You stop going to games, or you?
I had season tickets and PSLs up until 2019.
Okay.
I had season tickets with the Ravens with a good friend of mine who passed away in 2017.
And that changes things. Of course, that changes things. Sure.
We went to. I mean, we literally went to every Sunday Ravens game, every Sunday Oriole game.
And it means the world to you. It means the world to me. Those Colts games I went to with my dad, it means everything to me, you know?
Yeah, and when he passed away, I just kind of like.
It was a different experience.
My wife's doesn't enjoy going to the football games as much as I do.
Well, it's going to be cold as hell Saturday, too.
Yeah. So she's more, she loves the Orioles, so that's no problem there. But, I miss going out to the stadium. I do. It was a great experience.
I thought things changed dramatically when Ray stopped dancing.
Yeah, but I think
the crowd changed. Everything changed.
Yeah. There's
different
the
era.
dynamic.
Different era.
Yeah,
different era.
yeah.
And if the era is sitting out there with 20,000 Eagles fans or Steelers fans or Bills fans,
but
that's shameful. I mean, it just is. It should never have been there.
Yeah.
As Tom Matty is in our shot on the back wall over there in the Colts gear.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a tradition here of being a tough place to come in and play football, and I don't know that it's really been that since guys like you and I left. It's not the same.
Yeah.
I see that on TV. I feel it.
Yeah. I can imagine. I mean, when Ray was on the field and Ed was there and Suggs was there and Bart Scott was there and all those great defenders, that great Ravens defense. I mean, it was.
Well, they better play better defense.
It was. I kind of see Lamar in that role in terms of having to carry this team on his back.
Well, he's making $50 million a year now, so he's going to be the guy.
I get it.
The next 5 years, he's...
Yeah. I get it. But there's only so much that one guy can do. And
that's why they brought Derrick Henry in. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully there's not a repeat of what happened last year in the AFC Championship game, because it's a shame not to run that guy.
Pete Raimondi is here. He is with Westell Insurance and our friends at Erie Insurance. They are our sponsors. Give them a try on insurance. If you're thinking about insurance at the end of the year, Leonard was beating me up about it last week as well. We were talking about it on the air because it's the end of the year. And families get together this time of year. And it's, talking about money, talking about who's on my insurance, who's beneficiary, like all of that stuff. It's a tough time of the year for that, but it's something that, it's a week over the eggnog. Talk to your family about it because it really is important.
Absolutely.
It really is. All right. Give the phone number again for everybody and read your elevator speech about what you do for insurance and how you can just help somebody out there if they're, unhappy with their insurance, unclear about their insurance, or just, need some advice, right?
Yeah. I mean, at the very least, if you would like someone to explain to you what you have, I'll do that for you.
Right.
I mean, the only way I can help someone is I got to really be able to do two things.
Well, if you buy insurance on the 800 number, there is nobody to really explain.
There's nobody to sit with you.
Right, exactly.
There's nobody to make sure that you understand this, or if there's any other potential risks.
Well, only you know how much insurance you need.
Sure.
But somebody like you has to prompt the question of, what do you have around the house? If the house really burned down, is there something in there that's worth money? Right? Like all of those kinds of things. But nobody from the Geico team's doing it. Nobody from the 800 call center's doing that. It's just not.
And lots of folks, will wrongly assume that all of their personal property, all of their contents are covered. And again, if your agent takes the time to explain to you that that is not the case, that there are limitations regardless of what is stated on the
declaration. My place burns down and my car's belt buckle burns. Man, that's problematic for me.
Well, it's problematic because, A, it can't be replaced. So how do you determine a replacement cost on something that's a one-of?
I don't know.
Okay. So your insurance policy knows.
All right. Fair enough. Good.
But,
put that on there.
But if that belt buckle is worth, I don't know, $1,000, and you have an appraisal for it, and you want to insure that belt buckle for $1,000 because it is one of a kind and you're replaceable, we can help you with that. But folks assume...
Don't find that after the place burns down.
That's exactly correct. You don't want to find out that your valuable comic book collection,
got
your
flooded.
Lionel train collection, your sports memorabilia, your baseball cards, your football cards, all of your collectibles.
Your hats from the 93 All-Star game.
We're ruined, because the sump pump failed and, you came home to 6 inches
Yeah, I'm
of
glad I
standing water
did
in the
not
basement.
have my memorabilia in the basement. I lost a pool table and a video. There was stuff bad. There was just all sorts of crap down there. When you have a flood, nothing
Yeah.
It's the worst.
Yeah,
Floods and fires, dude, man. And you're
they're game
picking up the
changers.
pieces every single day.
They're game changers.
Pete will stand by you. We're standing by you. The other Pete will stand by you, too. We're at Costas Inn. It's all brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. Now, how long I'm going to hold up the holiday luck doublers, but they gave me these $5 tickets. Pete's getting one of those for being our contestant here on our little game show. Calvin Stadium's here. Todd Schuler's going to stop by, and Gina Schock from the Go-Go is going to come by and have a crab cake with us later on. It is the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. These are the holidays. Give Pete a call. You'll hear his ads. He's out at the front of Baltimore Positive as well with his little 300 by 250 little bonus. Click on it, and you can find him. I am Nestor. We're signing off from Costas Inn here. We are WNST, AM 1570, Tassel, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore Positive.